Okay, so I'm just leaving the SpaceX office in Washington, and I just noticed a few things. So I just thought I should make this video, guys. Yeah. Okay, let me just back up. Okay, good. So what has been on my mind is the fact that you see, like there's something happening in the UK where a lot of nurses and doctors and immigrants in general are complaining that a lot of far right activists, people who are pro UK, are protesting that their country has been taken over, and so they want their country back, whatever that means. And a lot of my African friends seem to be shocked. And I'm like, why are you guys shocked that this is happening? This has always been coming. For those of you who didn't see it coming, I don't know what you were looking at, but anybody who was objective and was watching will definitely see the level of concern that some of these people who are indigenous British people, and I'm not talking about people who are British because they were given birth there and they had a passport, even though their parents are from Timbuktu or Ghana. I'm talking about people who are white British people whose ancestors are from that land, and they have nowhere else to go if something happens. I mean, let's be fair. If there is war in the UK now and people are dying, a lot of people who claim to be British because their parents gave birth to them in the UK will pick their passport and go to the countries of their parents if their parents are not from the UK. Whether you are Japanese, you are Indian, you are Nigerian, or you are African. I mean, remember the famous story of the trader? I think he was an HSBC trader, Kofi Adoboli or something. When they had a problem with him, they sent him back to Ghana because even though he was born in the UK, his parentage is Ghanaian. So at the core of it, he has Ghanaian heritage, and they know that the passport does not change your identity. And that is what most people in the UK did not realize until now. Maybe the Americans sort of knew it under the first reign of DJT, but now in the UK, people are beginning to see it again. And so there are a lot of nurses are talking about this problem, and all they keep saying is, I need to start buying housing property in Ghana, I need to start buying land in Ghana, or I need to start building in Ghana. I mean, thanks to the Ghanaian government's year of return, a lot of black people are beginning to buy lands in Ghana now. So you see a lot of black Americans buying houses and lands in Ghana. I mean, I've met a lot of Africans, Senegalese, Zimbabweans who tell me they only want to own a home in Ghana. Even Nigerians, to be fair. And so let me just go back to what I was saying, so as not to digress. But Ghanaians and a lot of my African brothers are beginning to see these things, and they are getting concerned, and they want to start investing back home. But I'm asking, why did it take so long for the Africans to see this trend? I mean, this is something the Filipinos have seen. I have Filipino friends who, the moment they start working in the UK or America, they start building property in the Philippines. Some of them buy franchises like a McDonald's, they'll go and pay for it to be open, a branch to be open in the Philippines. Some of them, I mean, recently somebody has opened a franchise in the Philippines, and I don't even want to talk about it because some of my friends who know it will know that I'm talking about the person. So let me just shut up. But the person essentially is a nurse in the US and has bought a franchise in the Philippines. Now, this is something that the Filipinos, the Asians, I mean the Turkish people do all the time. Like, a lot of my friends who are Asians and from the Middle East, when you talk to them, you're like, what is your plan? And they say, man, the moment I work for 5 years, I'm going back home. Or the moment I finish my PhD or my doctoral degree, I'm going back home. And I'm like, what do you mean? You are in America, you are in the UK, you might as well stay here and make money. And they tell me, no money. This country, what I'm doing here is my job. My actual work is in my home country. And I'm like, whoa, this is serious. He's saying his actual work is in his home country. So it means that he knows that what he's doing here is temporal. And so they start investing from day one with a plan to go back to their home country. We Ghanaians and Africans don't know this. The moment we move to the UK or the US, we seek to demonize everything about our country. I mean, a lot of trolls was on the internet when Ghanaian nurses were migrating to the UK and the US. I mean, some of them were making fun of their colleagues the places they used to work, stuff like that. Some of them were like, oh, sabre ami ba befu plane obinsu ebefu kube. I mean, to wait, I'm going to board a plane and someone is going to climb a coconut tree. My friend, you are going to the UK doesn't mean you are British. And so when push comes to shove and people are concerned, they will drive you out. And so when these things have started happening, people are concerned that, oh, maybe I should buy property in Ghana. And there's evidence to show, there's data to show that a lot of Ghanaians are beginning to buy lands and homes in Ghana. Those who sold their whole houses and left, they're beginning to buy property back in Ghana. So that sense of seeking to detach yourself from where you came from as a home country is what is causing the surprise and concern for most Ghanaians. But there are other things that I think that we should also speak about. For example, when I was in the UK, one thing I realized is that Ghanaians and Africans and Nigerians were overly invested in spiritual activity. They were always in church. So for example, where I lived in northern England, like the Lincolnshire area, the biggest churches in the area were owned by Nigerians and Ghanaians and Africans in general. They own the biggest churches. So you see the Redeemed Christian Church of God, big. You see I mean a lot of other churches. Let me just go to this side. Like some of them single churches, even the Church of Pentecost from Ghana, Christ Embassy, and Lighthouse. A lot of the big churches were owned by Africans and Ghanaians, and they are bigger than the churches the English people run. They are bigger than the mosques and all of that, and they are owned by blacks, Africans. Meanwhile, the businesses like the ones that sell food, grocery shops, schools, finance companies, medical practices, doctors' offices, they were all owned by the Asians. Indians, Chinese, Vietnamese, they had dominated the area. Turkish people had opened dental practices and businesses in the area. So even though we, the Africans, were controlling the church industry, which is what we call the spiritual system, these Asians were controlling the business sector. And so they had money, they had more influence. I mean, look, when there is a problem, these Asians come together, and then because they have money, they are able to petition the highest authorities in the land. They are able to pay for the best lawyers in the land, and their voice is heard. They are respected. I mean, that is why it's easy for one of them to become a prime minister. What do you think? It's because the sheer influence of the people in the country. It's not because the Indians are a lot more than the blacks. So it's because the cumulative impact of their influence. The neurosurgeons who are black, who are Indians, who own their own practices, not just working in the NHS. They own their own practices. They own doctors' offices. So these people control the country or those areas of the economy. And so the UK and the English people are concerned that these people are actually controlling a lot of things happening in their country, and so they are taking over our country, and that is why they are concerned about it. It's not that they just go to school and come and work there. They actually own stuff. Like if you go to some cities in England, you could see a whole street owned by Indians because they own the buildings there. They form cooperative unions and associations. They invest in themselves and they buy property on that stretch. They do credit unions and they buy properties on that stretch. They set up funds. I mean, there are so many Ghanaian nurses in the UK. They don't even have a way to put themselves together and use money to fund themselves. And so if a Ghanaian nurse is trying to do something great, people have to contribute £10, £20, and it's the same in the US. But the Indians or the Filipinos, they have a board, they have funds, they have statutory organizations that support themselves. And so they push themselves to the very, very, very top of government in every country they find themselves in. And it's the same with the Indians. Like if you come to take offices in Washington, I mean, I play tennis with some guys, some Indians, nice people, but I tell you, okay, there's a lot of gatekeeping happening there, and they push themselves into those areas. So you can go to Microsoft and a lot of them are Indians and Asians and Chinese people, and it's not because they are the most intelligent people. No, it's because they make the avenue for their people to thrive. So if you go to Amazon, you see an Asian there, and he's trying to make his fellow Asians prepared for the job market. And it's not nepotism. They are just making themselves well prepared. So they go to the best school, they go to the Harvard, and they go to the MITs and all of that. they go to Caltech, they go to Yale. So when they come out, the companies want them. If you are an African and you come to the UK or the US, the first thing people will talk to you about is a church that is owned by an African that you must attend. And even if you stop attending that church, they'll stop talking to you. I mean, I've had people fight with me and stop talking to me. They refuse to invite me to their homes and all of that, which I don't worry about. But this is something they normally would have done if I had continued going to the same church. But because I felt like, let me just learn something else and get out of this whole African church system and learn what is happening in other churches, I lost the relationship with them. They don't even talk to me again. I don't worry about that, but I'm just trying to talk to you about something that I've noticed that is a problem. If this is how Africans behave, then we are definitely not going anywhere, because your focus has been that when you move to the UK, and that is it, you are not going back home again. And so you just come here, start a church, do church activities all the time, which is good, but you don't edify yourself, you don't educate yourself to become useful in other spheres. And so when push comes to shove and people are being kicked out, you really have nothing to linger to hold on to, because you are a cleaner in a small cleaning firm, or you are a carer in a small healthcare company. So what's your bargaining power? You are not a consultant. You don't own a practice. You don't own any business. What your big men own are churches. They own churches. That's all. And some of these Western countries don't really play the religious card, like how in Ghana or in Nigeria a pastor is so powerful and so influential and he can call a president and all of that. I mean these governments, they don't do like that. They don't do that. So if you're a pastor, you are just like an employee. You are not really that powerful, except you have a mega church, like maybe a TDJs on Achimolo. But if you own a business, no matter how small, you have a voice, and you begin to control some areas in the economy. And so this is what Africans, I think, we need to start looking out for, because we are missing out seriously. Like my Filipino friends, when they want to go to a nursing school or they need a nursing job, they always have somebody in the next hospital to call. And so when they are being stigmatized against, when they are being stigmatized, or when they are being discriminated against by some of these recruitment agencies, all they need to do is to call their people in other hospitals, and they move out. Try that as a Ghanaian. You will see how you will suffer, because there is nobody in the echelons of power who has your interest, or I mean, the Ghanaians there, most of them, you talk to them, they are carers. They are doing $13 per hour job, or if you're in the UK, like £9 per hour job, and they've been doing it for like 50 years. And then they'll tell you to go to church and pray. Meanwhile, the person calling the shot is an atheist. I know God can do that and still manipulate the minds of kings and all of that, but why don't we also educate ourselves, or make the decision to start investing back home, so that we can also build our country? Because seriously speaking, it is us who have to build our country. The Asians, they start investing in their country from day one. That's why they tell you, the moment I get my PhD, or the moment I work for 10 years and save $100,000, I'm going back home. Because they want to build their country, and they know that that's how you get the respect of others. At the risk of talking too much, I think I should end this video. Watch out for my video coming out on next migration, and let me know your thoughts about this video in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.